Are you? No, don't leave me. Don't leave me. Oh, don't leave me here in my time of vulnerability. I don't know what happened. This is the second time that's happened where they're like, we're going to close your stream down because you're using copyrighted audio. Is the copyrighted audio my don't use jingles? Jingles. Are they copyrighted? Alright. I think she wants to be done. Do you want to be done? Yes, she is. So I'm gonna reshare this link. I didn't say anything besides good morning and isn't my dog super cute in the last one, so I don't feel like anyone's really missed anything necessarily. Let's try this again. YouTube.com/doing privates. I stole the audio of my ceiling fan and kicked me off the last one. Alright. So we're back. Welcome to Friday. Happy Friday. It's very exciting. Everybody loves Friday. And today is a very special Friday. It's Flashback Friday. I sound like I'm on motion. Oh wow. That made a weird noise. I roll these dice and we discover how many years back in time we are going. A lot of interesting things happened this week in history. Wyoming became a state yesterday, and I don't remember what year. But we are going back. Oh, we're only going back 6 years. I thought it was 60 for a second, but I didn't realize I was reading it wrong. Hold on, let's hold these wrong. Okay, so 0 and a 6. And that seems super boring. But I believe in the heart of the cards, so we're gonna have to do it. 6 zeros. Yes. Oh, that was fun. Nope. That's wrong. There it is. July 24th, 2014. No. Oh, wait. Well, I could go back. 10 most important things in the world right now from Business Insider on that day. Well, I'll do that in a second. Because that's sort of like a primary source. We like primary sources here. Oh, hey. Air Algiers Flight 5017, a McDonnell Douglas MD-83, crashes in Mali, killing all 116 people on board. All right. Well, so now you know that happened. I don't really want to look it up. I don't remember this one, though, so let's look it up. Mali. I have a strong connection with Mali as a country because I don't know which class it was, but sometime in elementary school, we had to introduce ourselves. And first, we had to go up to a world map. We had to find a country that started with the same letter as our name. And we had to introduce ourselves as, I'm Mary, and I'm from blank, or whatever. which is a little bit weird because I'm not from Mali, but Mali was the one I found. Crash after high altitude stall in icing conditions. So it is operated by Swift Air for Air Algerie. Oh, it disappeared from radar about 50 minutes after takeoff, and there were no survivors. The French Bureau of a lot of French things and assisting the Malian authorities published an investigation report in 2016 concluding that while the aircraft was cruising on autopilot, ice accretion on the engines caused a reduction of thrust that led to a high altitude stall. The crew was unable to recover from the stall and the aircraft crashed to the ground. The Bureau issued several recommendations to Air Algerie, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, who were probably in charge of various security and safety measures that maybe were overseeing the making of the plane. France declared 3 days of national mourning. Flags flew at half-mast. Both black boxes were recovered. I didn't realize there were two. And the data from the flight data recorder was read out. The cockpit voice recorder had been damaged in the impact and repaired, but the recordings that the magnetic tape contained were unusable due apparently to a recorder malfunction with no link to the damage that resulted from the accident. As a result, the investigation prioritized alternate sources, like records of air traffic transmissions. There were several technical defects on the plane, several of which were on the EPR system, which I literally just read a second ago, but I don't remember what that stands for. Engine pressure ratio. Oh, okay. Intermittent failures on the auto throttle. EPR indicator was faulty, had no display values. Oh, okay, never mind. These are historical differences or problems that have been fixed, but possibly may not have been fixed completely and may have been causes of Okay, so sequence of events based on the analysis. The following is the sequence of events. I've been prepared to fly to Algiers from Ouagadougou. I know this one. Ouagadougou. There we go. As the crew would fly to Algiers, they should know the weather condition in the area. The crew had arrived in Algiers 1 hour earlier and knew about the weather in the region. Therefore, they had already known the risks of turbulence and icing while flying in the region. After handling the ground clearance, it finally took off from Ouagadougou at 1:15 local time, which was probably 1:15 a.m. And there were no incidents in the initial climb. 13 minutes after takeoff, while climbing through a sector, it slightly deviated to the left to avoid the storm in the area, and they reported this to Ouagadougou ACC. However, even though they knew that a storm had occurred in the area, the flight crews did not activate the engine anti-icing system. At that time, the temperature in the area indicated a high risk of icing. According to the procedures, the engine anti-ice system should have been activated. Even though ice crystals were likely to form due to the temperature and weather in the area, the airframe seemed to be not affected by icing. This was also what happened to the windshield. The probable absence of icing on the airframe, in particular on the windshield wipers, the possible lack of clear signs of ice crystals, which may be difficult to visually detect, especially at night, and are usually not detectable on weather radar. Plus, the absence of significant turbulence probably did not encourage the crew to activate the engine anti-icing system. The plane then leveled off about half an hour into the flight, 20 minutes into the flight. Flight crews then engaged the autopilot and the auto throttle. 2 minutes after leveling off, the speed of the plane increased. The crew then selected the cruise thrust regime from the thrust rating panel. Shortly after, the EPR values of the right engine became incorrect, probably due to the obstruction of the pressure sensor of this engine by ice crystals. The auto throttle then adjusted the thrust to prevent the erroneous values from exceeding the EPR limit in cruise setting. The thrust delivered by the engines was then lower than the thrust required for the level of flight, and the speed of the plane continued to decrease. For about 1 minute, the gap between the EPR values in the left and right engines gradually increased and then stabilized, and then the auto throttle switched to Mach ATL mode 3 times. 55 seconds after the anomaly of the right engine, the left engine's values became erroneous. Then the crew became aware of it. The crew may have tried to disrupt the problem with the engines decreasing speed, or that may have been another problem that happened, not a crew choice. Even though with all these anomalies, the speed of the plane was still near at normal speed cruising, causing the crew to not activate the engine de-icing system or anti-icing system. They did not know that there was insufficient thrust to the plane's engines due to blockage of the pressure sensors. So they didn't know what the real problem was. They were just trying to solve symptoms. And then, I mean, there's a lot of descriptions of exactly how and why the stall happened. The crews were doing something. The crews were doing something, and so we're not able to react quickly to the speed low warning that happened on the cockpit screen. And the autopilot was still engaged. And then can you imagine the loudspeaker? I don't know if it was piped into the cabin, but the loudspeaker just starts saying stall, 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 stall. And a lot of other warnings start to clip on too, and they are also audioly broadcasted. But somehow the crew did not seem to execute the stall recovery procedure, so that it seemed after the fact like the crew had not known that a stall had happened in flight. So then the autopilot tried to correct for the stall, I guess. I don't know if it was, I don't think it's a stall correction when the autopilot does it. I think it just is doing what an autopilot would do in the situations that it's reading. Yeah. Yeah. And then that made the stall basically unrecoverable. Dang. So there's a lot of, in the contributing factors, there's a lot of stuff that the crew could have done more quickly, it looks like. But the main thing that set it off was the non-activation of the engine anti-icing systems. Which, judging by the things that were said here, seems like they should have known. They should have just decided ahead of time that they were going to turn them on. But when they were in flight, they didn't see any signs of icing, so they didn't turn on the anti-icing measures, and that caused the readouts to be incorrect. That likely caused the readouts to be incorrect, because they could only ever say that they knew that there was obstruction in the readouts, in the things that were supposed to be determining that pressure value. But they knew that those were wrong values, but they don't know what was obstructing them. They can only assume that it's ice crystals. So it wasn't ice crystals. It could have been something completely different, but it was likely ice crystals. Anyway, so that was something I didn't really care to learn too much about. So it's very sad. So let's go back to that Business Insider article. The 10 most important things in the world right now. July 24, 2014. The Federal Aviation Administration lifted its ban on U.S. flights into and out of Israel's Ben Gurion Airport. I'm going to turn off my ad block and give me 1 second. Pause on pause. The agency had suspended flights to and from Tel Aviv over concerns related to a rocket strike near the airport. No thanks. So it's like, notifications, please? No thanks. Ukrainian, oh my gosh, remember this? A Ukrainian rebel admitted to an interview with Reuters that pro-Russian separatists had a BUK missile system, the type of weapon that U.S. officials believe was used in the downing of the Malaysian Airlines flight MH17, and that the missile may have come from Russia. Do you remember the downing of those planes? And it was like, there was 2 Malaysian planes. I don't know when the other one, I thought it was like that same year, the Malaysian flight. That one, there was one that was down in the Pacific. And I don't even know if they've even yet recovered any of the stuff from that, like the black box or anything. And it seems to have just disappeared. And then there was this one that was determined to have been shot down by Russians, or at least pro-Russian separatists in Ukraine. Maybe more Russians. And so then Malaysia Airlines was like, screwed. I think they closed. I think they went bankrupt. And then this one in Mali too, which wasn't Malaysian, but that's why I said I don't remember this one, because things I remembered were the Malaysian flights. Anyway, Secretary of State John Kerry claims that progress has been made on ceasefire talks around the conflict in Gaza. After more than 2 weeks of fighting, nearly 700 Palestinians and at least 32 Israeli soldiers and 3 civilians have died, the New York Times reports. South Korea said on Thursday it plans to spend $40 billion to boost the economy after announcing a lower than expected growth rate this year. The stimulus package will aid home buyers and small businesses. Facebook earnings crushed expectations in the second quarter. An Arizona inmate took 2 hours to die after his lethal injection. Oh, I remember that too. Oh. Lawyers for convicted double murders, James Wood, say he gasped before being pronounced dead. Lethal injections, people. It's not all it's cracked up to be. Lots of weird stuff going on about lethal injections. I think that then some of the comedy news shows did some things about that, which is the only thing I can think of is oh no, this is 2014. I was thinking of Last Week Tonight, and Last Week Tonight wasn't a thing yet. I'm fairly sure. My goodness. Sorry, my eye is like. A teenager who was attempting to set a record by becoming the youngest person to fly around the world in 30 days. Oh, died when his plane crashed into the Pacific Ocean. He was 17. I don't remember that. More than 1,000 families are being evicted from the world's tallest slums in Venezuela, known as the Tower of David. The squatters will be placed in government housing, and the slum may be demolished. A doctor leading the fight against Ebola outbreak in Sierra Leone, remember that? I forgot that was 2014. Has contracted the disease. There's currently no cure for the deadly virus, which first appeared in 1976. I think that one was for that doctor. They died. I don't know how many people didn't die from Ebola. Yeah, he did die. He did. At least 48 people were killed in a passenger plane crash in Taiwan. Lots of wait. I don't remember that one. Or do I remember that one? Lots of plane issues this year. Crashing into buildings. Wow, there's a lot there. The opening ceremony of Glasgow's Commonwealth Games, the largest sporting event in Scotland, took place on Wednesday. That was the 23rd. I just read that among my other things. Around 4,500 athletes from the 71 Commonwealth nations and territories will participate in the 11-day competition. So that's sort of just like a whirlwind of things that happen on this day in history, or around this day in history. A lot of those were just around this day, not on this day. And yeah, that's what I got. That's what I got for today. That's what I got for this weekend going forward. And I will see. Well, no, I won't. I'll play Magic on Monday, and you will watch. You will like it. Make good choices. Don't do drugs. Have a good weekend. Stay safe out there.